Welcome back to the Strategic Growth Podcast. I'm Pritch Pritchard. This is Kyle Golding. Today we're going to talk about when your company should insert itself into social issues and when you should not.
Oh, great topic.
The Golding Group Strategic Growth Podcast, formerly known as the Neo Marketing Podcast, offers real-world advice, expert analysis, and smart success strategies for entrepreneurs, investors, decision makers, and business leaders.
Kyle, how are you, sir?
Good to see you today, Pritch.
And better to be seen than viewed, I always say.
Exactly right. Every time.
I got a lot in a snot locker this morning.
Well, it's that time of year, and when the heat breaks a little bit, things start to bloom again. And, the life in Oklahoma, I think everyone understands that one.
Yep. Well, so if I sound a little froggy, that's
there it is. Pritch is okay. He's just got some allergies.
Yeah, exactly. So we were looking at this in my master's class here a week or so ago, but the companies and organizations need to understand that the expectations of business from society, from consumers, from employees, from investors is changing.
100%.
And even if the organization hasn't yet been confronted with a decision to speak on a potentially controversial topic, i.e. social justice issues, you might find yourself, as in all the things that we've said about crisis communication, you need to be prepared.
Preparation is always the key. We describe it like having insurance, right? Like you hope to never need to use the insurance, but you damn well better have it if the emergency pops off.
Absolutely. We definitely need to attend to and prepare ourselves for this new.
And I think the key to crisis communication and anything reputation-based is there's so much potential for you to take something small or something that is a little bit of a problem and make it massive in 1 second with the initial response that's bad.
Right.
And which is worse than probably not reacting at all.
Exactly. And I think a lot of folks go, social issues, I'm not going there.
I get the inclination to do that, but you still have to be prepared because it might show up on your doorstep.
It might show up on your doorstep.
Whether you want to go there or not, it might show up in front of you.
This is a case where, when it's knocking on your front door, doing nothing is not an option.
Nope. There's lots of times that you can stay out of it, and sometimes you just absolutely cannot.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the polls, some of the research is being done now. 2/3 of employees will, this is the trust barometer. I'm all here, really. Just some of me is slower than the rest. Right?
He's going to get when he gets there, it's going to be brutal.
Yeah. So the Edelman Trust Barometer, it's been around for a long time.
Yes.
Right. And most recently, 2/3 of employees say they're not going to work for somebody whose social issues outlook and approach doesn't match up with theirs.
And that number has been rising and makes sense due to as certain populations age out and younger populations become more of the meat of the market for employees. This is how you're going to have to think about things in 2022, 23, 25, 30, 35, and moving forward.
And moving forward.
Right.
And, sometimes there is a moral issue at hand, and the consequences will be most severe if you don't. That's what we were talking about before. But at other times, it's not so clear. And this is where I think most of our situations fall into. But ultimately, if your words don't match your actions, then you're going to be perceived as, these are great words, not mine, inauthentic, hypocritical, woke washing.
Ooh, I have not heard that specific term, but I understand what it means. Yeah, that makes sense.
Absolutely. And this is predicated on the fact that there's a whole lot less trust in government to solve big problems. And so people are looking to corporations to do this. And customers can see through lip service.
100%. Yes, consumers today are the most sophisticated they've ever been. They have so much information, so much knowledge, and so much connection and relation to brands and to businesses that you have to take that into consideration.
And here's another great turn of phrase that I stole from somebody. It's organizations need to avoid performative communication.
I get you.
Performative communication.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Virtue signaling is
Do not
sometimes
put
heard.
performances on. Do not put a air in front of you. Do not be false in your pretense, but communicate. And the key to communication is honesty and authenticity.
There you go. And I will put these in the notes, but there are 3 questions to help guide your approach to things.
Okay.
And this is based on some homework that I've been doing recently. Does the issue align with your company's strategy? This is first and foremost,
Yes.
right? Your strategy is based in part on the company's mission and values. So you got to go right back to that. Is there a misalignment with the issue you're speaking out on? Your statements will be viewed by your constituents and the public as inauthentic. So there's got to be a mission fit there.
For sure. And strategy as well is not, it's an internal process, but it's not internally driven 100% because your audience is a big part of your strategy. Who do you do business with? Who are your shareholders, whether they're people who purchase your product or services, or also employees, potential employees, partners, collaborators, shareholders. It kind of covers that gamut as well. And often those people are outside the company looking in.
Right.
And so that's part of your consideration. Who do you do business with? Who do you need to depend on for your business to be strategically excellent? And it's not completely 100% in your control. And so sometimes maybe individuals within the company may feel like personally that's not a take on a social issue they would have.
Right.
But if you understand who your audience is, who you do business with, and how business is done in general, again, business in 2022, not business in 1950,
Right.
then you have to make that part of your decision-making process.
Absolutely. So step 1 is make sure that the issue aligns with your mission and
Certainly.
visions, values, that sort of thing. Number 2, can you meaningfully impact the issue?
That's a great question, too, because there are, as often as you see businesses make statements that make a lot of sense and or maybe is expected, there are often times when businesses are just sort of trying to get in their brand associated with something they think the public is behind.
Right.
And like you were saying earlier, consumers can see through that.
Absolutely.
And so don't put on those, us too, and we're involved
Right.
in absolutely everything on the planet,
Right.
because it gets confusing and distracting from your actual brand message.
The big disconnect for me in this that meaningfully influencing the issue is Burger King several years ago decided it would tackle bullying
Right.
with a kind of a
make
snarky
sense?
commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think that they had the expertise. I don't think they had the resources,
Mm.
maybe the resources, but those, it's a franchise operation.
Right.
Anyway, do you have the expertise? Do you have the resources to make a difference in the issue?
And the correlation. There was no correlation.
Right. There's no correlation.
Right.
And you got to be willing to put your money where your mouth is too. If not, and you speak out anyway, then guess what? Consumers are going to see it for what it is. Absolutely.
Then let me ask you a question here. Let me put you on the spot. Let me challenge you a little bit. The NFL every year does breast cancer awareness, I think, month.
Right.
Does the pink, on the field and all the accessories and all that. Does that fit make sense? Breast cancer awareness and a obviously male-dominated sport. All the participants are male. 98% of the coaches are male and staff.
Right. Right.
So does that make sense, or can they bend to something that's big enough on a public perspective, or does it need to be more on mission for them? Should it be prostate cancer versus breast cancer?
That's a good question. It really is. I mean, I think there is kind of a disconnect, as you said, between that particular philanthropy and the environment.
To be honest with you, I find it to be, let's see if it's the exact right word here, but I find it to be just trying to associate themselves with something that they find is a popular thing to associate them with.
Right.
They've got a national partner, and ironically, that national partner's had some controversy within the last couple of years with how they handle money and things of that nature.
Right.
But then, they also do, around the holidays, they do the Red Kettle Drive and things like that, and Salvation Army, which makes a little bit more sense because it's not a male-female specific issue.
Right.
So I'm curious your take on that as a professional.
Yeah, I'd have to see all of the arguments that they made to put that partnership together, but to me it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right. But I think a lot of male sports do the same thing, and with breast cancer or other female issues, maybe it's an attempt to lure But then
constituency.
is that the right reason to do something like that?
To me, it seems inauthentic.
I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. They would have been better with prostate cancer or something like that. But,
or health or heart issues.
Yeah, heart issues. That hits everybody.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely.
Cancer, etc.
Well,
or just general cancer and not breast cancer.
The third question is, does our constituency want us to speak out?
Good.
And
good thought.
When they disagree with you and you speak out, guess what? There's trouble.
And there's a complete difference between your easy
for you to say.
Not easy. Your constituency, your shareholders, your stakeholders, and randos on Twitter.
Yeah,
those are different.
Totally different.
Just because 3 people called you on Twitter and 6 of their friends retweeted it, doesn't mean you have to make a public response to something.
I would never knee jerk, because we all know that the haters come first.
Yeah, and they fade away quickly.
So that was a very dangerous precedent to
agree.
Jump on something because somebody called you out on Twitter. It's a cancel culture BS.
Yeah.
So, but you do have to weigh the relative importance of your constituencies. If it's critical to your mission and vision that you speak out, then now you have to do a risk-benefit analysis.
Right.
That's the third question, right? Do I have a small customer segment with limited power that's calling on me to do this, or do I have big investors?
Mm-hmm.
So you do have to do a risk-benefit analysis on that.
And every business is very, very different. So,
absolutely.
There's some best practices about how you approach it, but how you make the final decision to engage or not is going to be very specific to your business and to, again, your audience and shareholders, stakeholders.
That's interesting. Nike only uses 2 questions. The first is, how do we want to show up? And the second is, and not just in the moment.
Interesting.
So,
because Nike is very insertive in certain issues, and again, there's obviously a relationship, because when it comes to racial equality issues, because a great deal of athletes, professional athletes, and specifically ones who have Nike contracts are African American or other minority groups, and so that makes sense. But they have gone beyond being supportive of causes or including it in some of their ad campaigns. I mean, they've created complete content that is only specific to racial justice and things of that nature. Whether that's right or not, I'm not making that judgment.
Right.
But for a shoe company, a sports apparel company, they're super assertive in
that space.
And from what I glean from, if you can trust sources on the internet, not random weirdos on the internet, but
randos,
business publications and other places, it hasn't been very economically viable for them.
Well, they made a big decision when they backed Kaepernick.
Yeah, Kaepernick. And like they created an entire wing of content around him and what he was doing, and as opposed to just simply supporting athletes that they had relationships with or that used their product, etc.
Well, and from the outside, I have no inside knowledge of this, but the calculus that they used was, okay, we can accept to lose those folks who are not supportive of this.
Sure, and that's often in the decision-making process, right? You need to be dialed into who you should be doing business with and people that you don't do business with or shouldn't have concern over, because your target audience is your primary.
So those are the first basic questions.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to go into a deeper dive, and again, we'll put these in the notes, but you got to go back to the value set of the organization.
Yes.
What's the company's mission? What's it stand for? What's the strategy?
Core values, true north.
Absolutely.
That's where you get into the strategic conversation.
And then you have to analyze what the social, political, environmental threats are to those elements of your strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a vision, and we see this social issue. Do those things match up, or is there a major threat on this issue against what we stand for as a company?
Right.
And then where and how can you meaningfully influence the discussion to neutralize those threats? Right?
And that's another one, too. I see a lot of brands make statements that don't push the needle in any direction. And it goes back to the conversation about why are they even making comments here? And is this something they're doing to create a false pretense? Or Are they trying to, like you say, make an actual impact or not? To make a simple statement and kind of take the easy way out or cover their bases, cover their ass, if you will,
Right.
the CYA.
Right.
Goes back to the idea that consumers eventually would be like, this is
a non sequitur.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And along with that question, what will your voice uniquely add to the discussion?
Right.
Because there's a lot of noise out there, and if you just go out there and wah, you're more noise.
Us too.
Yeah, us
Right.
too. Absolutely. And then which issues do you have alignment with your constituency on?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in the end, you really have to do what's right for you. You have to be consistent. You have to be authentic. You have to be credible. And you have to do those things that continue to earn your trust and loyalty of your stakeholders.
Right. And not just customers, stakeholders. Everyone that you are involved with.
Absolutely. So, there's no benefit to making a blanket statement that covers every issue that may arise. Right? That's not good. So you have to weigh the morality around a given issue, a given response, the intensity of emotion associated with a specific constituency, and what the consequences of no response might mean.
Right.
Those are really important issues to think about. There's some areas to absolutely avoid. Okay.
Sure.
And I'll finish with this. But, and it mirrors a lot of what I was taught in the Navy, the non-acceptable topics at the wardroom table: sex,
Right.
politics, and religion.
Yeah, you know what they say: don't discuss these things at a cocktail party.
Yep.
Or in your brand messaging.
Or in your brand messaging, absolutely. Religious events or issues is one area that I would absolutely stay away from. There may be the occasional need to call out something religious, an event or an issue, but boy, those are few and far between, rarer than hen's teeth, as my grandmother used to say.
Being supportive of people's religion and their religious backgrounds and things of that nature, holidays and other things that are public events are great ways to interact with your stakeholders in a soft, subtle way.
Yep.
Getting into controversies connected to religion or religious figures is definitely a very, very slippery slope.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. As are ongoing investigations or situations where you don't yet know all the facts.
And which is absolutely the first 24 to 48 hours.
Absolutely.
You really don't know anything.
Right, exactly. And we talked about this before in terms of basic media relations,
Right.
is you don't want to ever speculate.
No.
And if you're commenting on a social issue before all the details are known, and we've seen some examples here
lately. The internet
lately.
is forever.
Absolutely.
Whatever comments or statements that you make, if you turn out to be wrong or mostly wrong or even 51% wrong, then it's going to come back to you. People are going to bring that back up. You can't walk that back.
Right.
And even with an apology, it's still out there.
Now, these next two may be controversial in and of themselves.
Hey, all right, let's see what happens.
Politicians. Now, there are some good reasons for an organization to back a particular candidate, but in general, I don't think that I would insert myself into the political scene by commenting on politicians.
I agree with this exception. Backing legislation or causes or theories. So backing pro-business legislation as a business makes sense. Backing maybe trade regulations or lack thereof, or lifting tariffs or adding tariffs or tax incentives or all kinds of things that will affect your business. And again, affect your business in not just you and we want to make as much money as possible, but really make it hard for you. Maybe it changes the way you employ people or that you actually do business. Those things you can get behind with the theory of, this is good for business, this is bad for business, this is how we keep people employed, etc. As opposed to backing, even if you're backing the politician who's driving that cause or driving that bill or whatever that the legislature is thinking about, backing the concept and the idea of how business is done, how people are treated, and all those things is something that you can sell your stakeholders.
Right.
Backing an individual who might have other opinions that people don't agree with or are unpopular, or might even just do something personally. The worst thing you can do is be tied to someone who next week goes out and gets a DUI or something worse.
Or something worse.
So
it's like a celebrity endorsement.
Yes. Yep. So backing or endorsing legislation for specific reasons is acceptable and very manageable.
Yep.
Backing politicians is a risky proposition.
Yep, absolutely. And there's some nastiness going on
and
in
we
the
have
Pacific
friends that
Northwest.
are politicians. We have
we do.
We have friends in office, and we have people we know and respect, people we don't respect. And I still would not counsel anyone to get behind specific individuals who don't have a very obvious connection to your business.
Exactly. And the epitome of this, of the downside of supporting politicians is the nastiness that's going on up in Seattle over the mayor's race. The Republican challenger is getting hit by Starbucks.
Right.
I mean, vicious campaigns against this individual. So this is not a good look.
I utilize what I refer to as the Dan Gordon rule. For those of you, anyone who's on social media, you guys know Dan Gordon. He's an amazing jewelry expert, formerly out of Oklahoma City. He's now in Ohio now. But Dan told me when he was in Oklahoma City and he was a client of ours, he had the Dan Gordon rule, so he sells jewelry, right?
Right.
Well, who buys jewelry? Everybody, all kinds of people, and they sold jewelry that was from $50 to $50,000 in value. It wasn't exclusive to one type of segment, etc. So Dan assumed half of his audience, 43% of the country is on one side and 43% of the country is on the other side.
Right.
The independents in the middle. So half his audience were probably Democrats, half his audience were probably Republicans. And the best thing he could do is walk down the middle, ignore those things, and provide the best service and the best value and the best experience to every person, and avoiding the conversation about politics altogether because selling them jewelry had nothing to do with politics.
Absolutely. And this is exactly the point that is a great example of the point we're trying to make.
Shout out Dan Gordon.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
A great sales mind. He does a good job. He could sell anything. He's an amazing jewelry and accessory salesperson who has the point right there is don't worry about politics, create relationships with people, provide value and service.
Yep. Has nothing to do with your business at all.
Everyone's money is green. That's the key. It spins the same.
And I think this last item is something that I would never do or advise a client to do, and that's to jump in on the election discussion.
Yes.
This is
you
not
have potential
helpful.
To be on the wrong side of everything.
Either side. I mean, if you pick one side, you got half the country pissed off at you.
I said 43% is on one side or the other.
Exactly.
And
so
why go there unless what you do is connected to politics?
Absolutely, and that's the rare as hen's teeth exception.
Yes.
Yeah. So there you go. Hopefully this is helpful to a lot of folks. Myself included, would like to just forget about all this social issue stuff in terms of business.
Sure.
But that's not possible anymore.
No.
So you have to prepare yourself.
And it may seem like this is a lot of work, and it is to a point. There's a lot of work you have to do up front. You're also relying on a lot of work you've already done, creating your strategy and your true north and your vision
and your
mission statements,
relationships,
etc. All those things should exist in your business, so you're kind of just reviewing what you've already decided what your company is and what you stand for. Yeah. But it also should be some work and some process. You need plenty of people involved, whether they're internal, external experts, third party, etc., to make sure that you're not being knee-jerk, that you're not jumping into something for all the wrong reasons or something that maybe you're thinking of unintended consequences. You need to think these things out as much as possible. At the end of the day, your business, your brand is the reputation of your business. You have to protect the brand at all costs, but there is an expectation from the public that you can't avoid everything at all times. It's at some point, something possibly shows up in your doorstep, or something makes so much sense to the alignment of the brand that you want to get yourself involved, whether it's dipping your toe in just a little bit or diving head first, however that is. But be prepared, be thoughtful, and explain your thought process. Whether you decide to not make a statement and explain why, or you do make a statement and explain why, and like good insurance, just be prepared and hope you never need it.
Absolutely.
But I also think working through this process internally is good for your team. It's good for you to have conversations some point the conversation may be an awkward conversation and
Yeah.
maybe uncomfortable.
Right.
You may have to say, what if this happens in these four walls, and we have to be honest with each other. You're not trying to insult each other or anything, but you also have to be very honest about people have opinions, and some are unpopular, and here's how 43% of the country feels, and here's how the other side feels. And if you have a good team, you have open communication, if you're honest with each other, if you have the right corporate culture where you can discuss the realities of it, and then bring it back to what it means for the business or for the brand, etc., you might end up really strengthening the bonds of your team and the people involved.
Well, and that's most likely where you're going to see this stuff start to bubble up, is with your employees.
It should be people, the water cooler conversation that then someone comes to their supervisor or boss, or goes into someone's office and says, this is happening in the world, and we would like to know.
Right.
And you have to be able to communicate both internally and externally, and understand the process involved, and explain to everyone the process involved. If you can do that, then the likelihood of avoiding bad mistakes goes way up. And if it's a knee-jerk reaction, or definitely the worst thing that can happen is because the CEO said so, then you're gonna be creating potential for you to really harm your business, harm your brand, and the ability for you to continue to be profitable, continue to employ people, continue to do business. That goes down. And so you have to be protective of that.
Yep, absolutely.
As much as we all want to weigh in on every issue and try to make the world as the best it can be, you also have to protect your brand and your business, because that's how you employ people and you keep their livelihoods alive. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, hope this was helpful. I think it's an issue that makes a lot of us uncomfortable to talk about, but you have to be prepared. You can't ignore it anymore. So there we go. So until next time, keep your powder dry.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thanks for listening to the Golding Group Strategic Growth Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. To contact us, please visit thegoldinggroup.com.